Happy Spooky Sunday, everyone! Today we're going to be covering a couple of spooky stories from the subreddit Let's Not Meet. Our first story is called Scary Clown in the Woods. I have been debating on posting this, not because I have been scared, but simply because this is my first post since joining Reddit. Please forgive my writing, as sometimes my wording and punctuation could be better. I'll start off by explaining the area so you can get a good picture of where this occurred. We lived in a small neighborhood. All of the surrounding streets dead end into a half-circle park. Behind the park are some woods and a railroad track. When we were younger, we all played in the front part of the woods. We never ventured too far back. This was our play area for many years. Never had an issue or scare. This area was a pretty and well-lit wooded area. Anyhow, one day my brother Jimmy, my best friend Sarah, and my brother's best friend Ian, we were all building a dam in the middle of the creek that ran through the park and the woods. The boys decided that they were going to head back to Ian's house for some snacks. Sarah and I said we would stay and finish our camp area. As we are moving rocks around, I get a very odd feeling coming over me. A strange feeling that we are being watched. I immediately think it's the boys trying to scare us, and just continue with what we are doing. Sarah and I load up some big rocks and head back to the creek and put them down at the dam. I get that feeling again, and as I stand up, I see something straight in front of me about 30 feet away. I can't clearly make out what it is yet because it is behind a bush, but I do see that it is a pattern of red and blue. I know that's nothing the boys had on, so at this point, I'm focusing on trying to figure out what it is. As I am scanning up the bush, I start to realize it's a clown. I kid you not, my heart started pounding immediately. The clown in my eyes lock. He is wearing a red-blue hat with a reverse pattern red-blue jumpsuit. I grab Sarah's shirt and immediately pull her upright, and she notices the man right away. He is smiling with a full face of makeup and has a huge knife. We both say nothing and start running as fast as our legs can take us. He begins to follow. We can hear twigs snapping and ground crunching, but we are booking it. We run through the front of the woods, through the side of the park, and up her dead-end street. Ian and Jimmy are 2 houses up from the end, and see us running and are screaming what is going on. While running past, we scream, "A clown!" and they start laughing. We are still running and screaming for our lives and finally make it to the middle of the street, where Sarah's dad, Danny, is now running out the front door because he hears us screaming. We meet Danny right at the beginning of the neighbor's house, and we are trying to explain what we see, and he says, "Stop it now! This is ridiculous! What are you talking about?" We try to catch our breath. By this time, Jimmy and Ian have caught up to us. We are crying and pointing and telling Danny again that we saw a clown with a knife. Jimmy and Ian are laughing, and Danny is asking if they played a prank on us. About this time, an old yellow Pinto type of car comes up from the dead end at the park and pulls right up next to the sidewalk of the yard we are in. Sure enough, plain as day, it's the clown. No hat this time, but knife in hand and telling us to come here. Danny starts shoving us all toward the house, and he himself is scared and running now. The car drives off down the street. We get inside and Danny calls the police. We had to give statements, and the police patrolled the neighborhood and the park for a few weeks. We were never allowed to go in the park again, and a few months after that the city started to clear out the woods. Cut down many trees and made a walking area that you could see through all the way back to the train tracks. My friend and I used to talk about this many times up until her death. No one would believe us had they not seen it as well. It was just so scary. I think they only get to see him because whoever it was had to go down the dead-end street to leave the neighborhood. Either way, this man was not afraid of us, nor the small group of people that gathered from our screaming. He very bravely stopped right in front of us as her father tried to comfort us and calm us down, all while flashing his knife. We are lucky to be alive, I feel. Had it just been one of us left in the woods, which sometimes occurred, I don't think there would have been a group of 4 of us any longer. Sarah's dad stopped drinking that day. We all have a fear of clowns. Our next story is, I'm never taking my girlfriend's brother to the park again. So this happened a year ago, and I'm still pretty shaken up by the whole event. I thought I'd tell my story. I live in the UK, and in autumn, it gets dark around 4 p.m. There was a school autumn break that week, so all the kids were at home, so that means my girlfriend's brother was home too. I'd been with her for a year at that point, so her family knew me pretty well, and her brother enjoyed my company. She'd recently been pretty stressed out. Her parents were going across the country for the day, so they had her look after her brother, but I thought that I'd give her a day to herself so she could just cool off. I asked her parents if I could look after their son for the day instead, and they agreed. So I came around 8 a.m. and they let me in before they set off. My girlfriend's brother woke up about an hour later, and she followed shortly afterwards. We went out for breakfast at the local cafe together and went back to our house when we were done, and once I dropped her off, I took her brother to the park. We got there about 2 p.m. and the place was pretty packed. Eventually the sun started going down and the place was completely empty by 4 p.m. I texted my girlfriend and told her we'd be home in a bit, and she said okay. I'm gonna be honest, I completely lost track of time. Me and her brother were having fun being the only two in the park. Me and her brother were standing on top of this really tall climbing frame with a slide on it. It was almost pitch black at that point, so I was using my phone as a flashlight. A notification popped up on my screen, and it was my girlfriend asking where we were. I responded, "Oops, coming home now," and told her brother we had to go. He sighed and asked if we could go down the slide, and I said yes. Before I went down, I knew what the park looked like. There were streetlights all around it, benches everywhere, some trees, and places for kids to play. When I came out of the slide, there was something weird. A man had appeared out of nowhere and stood beneath one of the streetlights. He had a trench coat on and a beanie hat. I immediately got my girlfriend's brother behind me and called out to the man with a friendly, "Hi there." I got a response. He started groaning. I noticed he was swaying back and forth in the light, and he had his mouth open, drooling, with a blank look in his eyes. This man made me feel really uneasy. I picked up little bro and kept checking on this guy the entire time. There was an exit to my left that led to the path back home, so I left out that way and kept checking behind me every few seconds. The guy was still there. The path where the guy stood merges with a big main path if you walk out through some bushes, and so does the one I walked through. I was walking down the path for about 2 minutes, periodically checking behind me, and I thought I was in the clear. I wasn't. I was on a straight stretch of path with lots of street lights when I saw him again. He stood beneath one, looking up at it, and he was playing with something in his hands. I looked closer and realized it was a knife. I kept walking and walking, checking behind me constantly. Girlfriend's little brother was so scared, he had his head tucked into my chest. I noticed that the guy seemed to be moving to new streetlights whenever I turned around. Initially I thought it was my eyes playing tricks on me, but I started counting them and realized 2 streetlights behind him had definitely turned into 5. I could faintly hear the groaning noise, and he was occasionally moaning as well. I picked up the pace a bit and turned a corner, getting into the last stretch of street before I got to my girlfriend's house. That was when I heard him behind the row of bushes. That moaning noise sounded angry, and I heard his heavy footsteps bounding down the path. The man was running. I immediately broke into a sprint and didn't stop until I turned an alleyway at the front of the street and got behind my girlfriend's house. There's a big bush there, so I crouched down behind that and spammed her phone with messages to open the back gate. I hugged her brother close until she opened it for us and got us in quickly. It felt like years. I went to the front of the house and had it confirmed that I'd managed to shake him. He was now in the street, circling where I'd been, outside of the alleyway just moments ago. He was still moaning. He still had that knife in his hand. He started kicking people's bins over. I called the police immediately, but he was gone by the time they arrived, and as far as I know, they never found him. There was a similar incident near the area a few months ago I saw in a local Facebook group. but I don't think anything came of that either. Her parents thanked me for keeping their son safe and didn't hold any ill will against me for the situation. He went back to normal pretty much the day afterward, but he still has nightmares about the event. When my country isn't in lockdown, I'm still allowed to look after him with my girlfriend, funnily enough. But we haven't been to that park ever since, and I still check over my shoulder and break into a cold sweat every time I'm alone in the street. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, consider giving it a like or letting me know in the comments. I post a new video twice a week, funny or outrageous ones on Wednesdays and spooky ones on Sundays. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.